Hi, everybody. Monday on Astral Oracles. The central thing I want to convey is that if you follow your soul's path and calling to its natural conclusion, it will bring you into a realization that will show you why it led you through all those things that brought you there. And that is the ending that's the completion of the circle, and that's when you come into contact and align those layers of yourself which have been disparate and which are at odds with each other in ways that are difficult to map out because you're already on the battlefield of the soul. Which is, for instance, the metaphor that the Bhagavad Gita uses, so that that great battles between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, I think that's the names, that of course then is the battlefield of the cosmic forces of reality itself, and that battlefield is within you. And that's in many ways the misaligned dance of energy, where things are misordered. So in the truest sense of yoga, of course, the purpose of these spiritual techniques and whatever system you're following, or what practices you're using, or what tradition you're in, the central purpose of it is to align microcosm with macrocosm. It is to align these different central layers so each have their place, and whatever the situation demands of us, that is what we must yield to, which is the karma yoga that Krishna prescribes for Arjuna in his inner turmoil and conflict in having to participate in this battle. So it is the sense that we are dancing with reality. We are this twirl of forces that are attempting to align themselves and find an expression in the world, and whatever is passing through us are essentially divine intentions that are meant to build up to the end point, to lead you to the mountaintop. And you may have noticed as a thumbnail for my latest video, I used the swastika, and there's it's from Diwali. I hope it's obvious that it was a Hindu swastika, and it was a mother and a child where they're lighting the candles. So I thought the candles, I thought it was fairly adorable, but it's also an attempt to repurpose this symbol for what it's meant to. Every eon and every epiphany, every religion has one of these very strong, powerful symbols that can convey the entire message, and actually in and of itself acts as a transcendental point, a point of understanding where you can access the divine from, and that can be the waxing and waning half moon, or the intersections of the cross, the divine wheel, the Tao Te Ching, right? Or you know what I'm talking about, like that system of the yin and yang. So all these are entrance points that express the entirety of a way to access the divine within one symbol. And the swastika does the same thing, and that's why it appears in all places on the planet in one way or another. And when we use the word meander, we are speaking of these swastika intersections that go on forever, moving in and out of it. And the swastika is, of course, a much maligned system in this part of the world. which is why it must be healed and restored, and that's a part of the epiphany that I think I've had around this, that it's this ancient symbol that conveys the dance of the divine, and it conveys these different pathways to God. It also conveys, as we're moving to the center, we experience breaks that actually reroute us into where we are going, and it conveys the fact that, well, these divine movements, it has a way of matching the angles and breaks into a divine twirl or harmony where things are balanced out. And what it has shown to me is how to attain that in my body. So it's been breaking and unlocking my body and placing it in a lot of different yogic positions. And then it taught me something that I need to tape at another point to stand up. But it is this type of Sufi spin where my arms break out and arrange like a cross, and then my body can twirl around its axis in a way that seems to stretch everything from the sacrum and upwards. So that has been very magical, to be shown how this harmony of movement that needs to pass through the body can be physically expressed and aligned. And so I've begun to kind of refer to the entire experience as the twirl, and that is expressed in the movement of the swastika, which is the divine dance, which I think is so very beautiful, and um, often notice, which I've talked about a lot, like these very strong contrast points that spirituality will generate, and where it is, the idea that the kind of, homeless single mother who's out on the coldest night of the year looking for a shelter so she can give birth, like that's God coming into the world to save it, right? And he himself is like crushed and humiliated and abandoned and like put on display for his humiliation and shame, to be immersed, and that becomes the divine victory that absolutely changes the world on its axis, right? Or it's the prince who walked out of that because he, for some reason, like he just, life didn't do it for him, whatever rewards it had on offer for him, and then he starves himself to death, and that somebody thinks that's very cool that he can like beat up on himself so much, mind over matter, right? And then it's, yeah, okay, that there's no point in that either. So I'll just go out in the woods, and if there's nothing to it, I'll sit out there and stuff. And that becomes that like absolutely point of like the lonely loser who becomes the guy who holds the entirety of the great lotus flower of the 10,000 universes in the palm of his hand, like just resting, like here it is. And and those the points are within us, and that soul of, if you can call it God or divine intuition or the guidance, and I probably also tend to see it as history, like this a great force that's making itself aware through its breath, and its breath is divine creation. It's all of us, and it's all of the things that surround us, and it's also all the beautiful plants and animals and teeming life force that this magnificent garden we were planted in is full of. And and there is a divine beatific vision in that. So when we've spoken of ascension and moving into these new mind states, a part of it is you'll see what we've been calling synchronicity. You'll see it sort of build up into a type of crescendo where it becomes revelation and things are fitted together, where you realize in a way that's often hard to express or convey to others, but how everything has been laid out for you to put together and become this new assimilated version of you. And that assimilated version of you is somehow more you, but it has also abandoned lower self. Has abandoned, it stopped channeling like the neurotic, isolated, fearful, restricted compound that's called the ego identity, and it then begins to channel this sort of wider faith awareness, faith, hope, and love, right? Like that everything is on course and planned and on track, and if we yield to that, the world will restore itself. And there's not been a point in human history so far where we've been able to go, oh hey, okay, maybe things aren't so bad, like maybe we don't need to struggle for survival or eke out the calories we can get, or see what we can squeeze out of our great mother. Instead, we can actually turn around and go, hey, what if we have enough, and what if there's a deep gift to the fact that the world expresses itself differently through all of us. Because the voice of ego it's an impersonal voice, and that voice says, what everyone else has, I actually need to have for myself, and what I have for myself, nobody else can take part in. And for that reason, it is this void that just wants to eat. And if you've ever seen, the runt of the litter that's being shoved away by the other kittens, or what kind of mammals we're dealing with, this is the primordial voice, and it absolutely is working for its survival. That's the attitude that you need to take to get at the mother's milk. Because if you're not, then you don't get the calories, the others do, and then they'll make sure that you definitely don't get the calories, and then you'll starve to death. And that's as real as real can be. So that's the fear of the root chakra, and the mouth, right, which is a deep mammalian code that, what they have, like, I need to have it, and away with you, right? So I can drink mother's milk, and the terrible thing is that we've collectively been so much in need and fear that we've programmed our reality to try to feed and accommodate that, and it's making us incredibly ill. So the fact is that we've turned around, like, behavioral psychology, all these very sophisticated insights about humans, and then, like, how can we program these thingamajigs so they just keep pressing that button that wants to say more, and I'm afraid, and oh, please fill me up, but I feel like nauseous. Because if you've ever seen, a baby get what it wants, like having that ego, like, I can I just drink myself full, that feeling, it is, of course, like, oh, to just suck all up everything I can, and then I'm nauseous and burp and vomit and repeat or sleep it off. And that's of course, like, somehow immediately gratifying to that bodily instinct. And if you're a tiny little baby, that's all well and good, but then you wean off, and then you become aligned with these higher instincts of reality, and aligning these planes of reality. And at that point, then all the energy you retain makes you nauseous, makes you sick. It builds up into unconsciousness, and that's where the divine twirl comes in. Everything that sits still, that is not aligned with source, that is flow, right? It spills forward and drives everything. And if it puts itself as an obstacle up against the force of the river, like, then it's smashed and destroyed. It's washed away. And which is why the divine movement has to take us and continuously purify us. And the thing that then blocks us there is often the experience of shame. It's the experience of what if I'm observed or seen doing this and judged, and the judgment is kind of a coordinate. That's a locking up. That's, you must be there. Stop, stop moving and twirling and being alive. Um, and you'll find this judgment, for instance, in the reverse swastika, right? Which is then it's locking it's locking that into like a hard edge black cross depiction, and then encircling it, and then putting that into a red violent rectangle. So that's again like that. Can I lock it? Can I lock it down? Can I control it? Can I control and dominate this life force, so I can still that red void, that need, that want, that voice of ego within me, that wants to just turn everything into itself, because it then it thinks it won't be afraid, then it'll have everything, but because it hates itself, it it really can't suffer to see itself. And that is twirling around to the point, that is that it's the force of shame that keeps us locked into these things. And the judgment is the instillment of shame, that locking into, you are that thing, and that thing is wrong. And the movement, the divine source, the flow, moves that and carries carry it away. Because what we think is that shame is something that we often relate to the experience of the other, um, this eye that's watching us, that's coming from the outside, from society, but the eye that's watching us is the divine eye, pun intended. It's the light of the soul. It's the divine mirror. It's this sun disk, that's the soul, that's seeing all parts of you, and it is the searing light from this, that you turn away from, because the shame is hidden, like it's hiding itself from that divine light, like that wants to activate, purify, move you, push you into what was intended for you, the divine dance, the steps that are laid out for you. And we turn away from that because it really is searing, it really is purifying, and it's very painful to be seen at that level. And notice how we are playing around with this in our technology to an extreme extent, that this dream of being seen, where people often will fetishize celebrity, for instance, right? Because that's, like like they get attention, recognition, all these things, and I wish that was me, but oh no, I couldn't. So we have this interesting little dance of shame where we display and conceal ourselves. And of course, with the proliferation of cameras, I think this will be very pronounced in the people who are born in the new millennium. With this proliferation of cameras, we'll see that like the fear of being on display can't really sustain itself because you're like constantly being taped, and there's probably, you know, compromising material of everybody that could kind of be used to lord it over their heads with, like, don't you feel ashamed about that? but but of course the proliferation, like this idea that if you're constantly seen and on display, then there's no difference. Then all of you is kind of out in the light. So in that way, we're collecting, as we're realizing and coming into these spiritual realizations of hive mind, of connectivity. We're technologically doing a lot of the same things. Um, and I think a lot of what that's teaching us is also through overexposure to figure out other ways of being, where we aren't necessarily feeding these buttons, but also teaching ourselves the choice of moderation, of discipline in the truest sense, which is not self denial, but kind of undertaking, taking the choice of what's good for you rather than what's easy or diversive or escapist, right? So again, of course, this central doctrine that the two words of creation are yes and be. So so that total allowance of whatever it is, source wants to um, let you drink from her wellspring. With that talk, I hope there were some points in there that served you well on your path, and I send you my deepest love. Thank you so much for being on your path, guys. Thank you for dancing with the cosmos.